Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. Been a little while since we did an IRL deck profile, and today I'm bringing you guys an updated build for Green Gotenks. Reason I'm doing this is because, one, I finally have a local, so I have reasons to build IRL decks now. So if you're going to my locals on Thursday, you know what I'm playing, which is kind of funny. But besides that, I did a video on Friday talking about rogue decks that I want to recommend to you guys going into the end of set 15, just for your guys' enjoyment, but also some of the decks I thought have a pretty unique position going into set 16. And Green Gotenks is one of those decks because the best green deck is getting banned, and Gotenks and King Cold were kind of those green rogue decks that were in a decent spot already, and with the power level of other colors theoretically coming down, Green Gotenks should be able to step up. We know that set 16 green isn't really all that great, so we do kind of have to look at older strategies. But today, guys, we'll go over the list that I'm playing. I'll also share with you guys some of my thoughts for sideboard cards, whether you're playing in a best of 3 locals or a best of 1 sideboard locals. A lot of locals are trying that out now that that's been announced for the DBS Fest. But yeah, I'll be going over that, going over play lines and stuff like that, of course. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. So we've got the Gotenks leader. Don't want to waste too much time on it because it's been around for like 6 sets now. But basically, the important things: awaken early when you have a 2-drop Unison in play, which you always want to try to have on turn 2. And on the backside, just a plethora of effects. The pay a green, you can either take a marker off of Unison or pitch a card to play 2 15k tokens, which I don't think people use the pay green effect enough. Like, I've seen a fair amount of Gotenks players over the years now, and it doesn't seem like this effect gets utilized to the best of its ability, but it is actually pretty important. But of course, depends on circumstance. I know there's a fair amount of glare here, but I don't think there's too much on this side where I'm placing the cards. Trying a little bit new of a setup, so hopefully it works out well. But anyways, we are playing our 4 Gokules. Pretty much the best turn 1 play you can get in the deck. You get to search out your various Gotenks cards, of which we played 2 different ones, and then you get to pay another green to basically search out your 2 fusion materials. So your best play is basically doing this on turn 1, and then going into your Vegito Unison on turn 2. That's really important as well, so you can get awakened. And then once you awaken, you untap 1 and draw 1, so that allows you to actually use your Gokule's ability on turn 2, and that's just a way to get max value. Like, if you're able to do that all on turn 2, your hand's actually going to blow up. It's going to be really, really big. And then for the rest of the game, every time you fuse, Vegito will draw you a card. It's got the +2 to give your green battle cards revenge, which is just like kind of nice. Doesn't really matter all the time, although there will be sometimes your opponent can't swing into your stuff. I guess this will be actually more important going into set 16 if you come across people playing the new Whis deck or the new green Beerus and Champa deck where they kind of have to attack into your battle cards. I guess that'll be more relevant. But the -7 is actually a win con in and of itself. The -7, if you can resolve it, killing one of your opponent's lives and then making them pitch 3 cards, that is such a strong way to set up your kill turn. And this thing does gain a lot of markers. It starts off with 2, goes +2, and then a lot of times you'll have to tuck an extra copy to resolve that. But it is very, very strong when you're able to do it. It's very, very good. And then just to finish up the Unison count, we are playing 2 copies of Bardock Paternal Unison. I was going back and forth whether or not I wanted to play 6 Unison or just 4, but I really do want to get that Awaken off as soon as possible. And theoretically, Soul Striker is going to be very, very strong in set 16, so having a card that kind of inherently just helps you deal with the rival-based decks is just very, very good. So this seems like a good meta call going into set 16. And then for our fusion materials, or I guess our fusion boss monsters, we have 4 copies of Grim Reaper. This card just does it all. It's absolutely insane. Play it, draw 2, pop a guy. If it dies, you get to pick up your materials. It's got dual attack. It's 25k. It only costs 2 energy. This card is just absolutely insane. And then when you fuse with your various materials, they have some effects that we'll go over in a bit. And then we are playing 1 more Gotenks. We're playing 1 copy of All Out Assault. This card is really, really good, especially because now barrier removal is a bit more important than ever, especially because yellow is pretty popular and the slug engine is also popular. But yeah, sometimes I want to play more than 1 copy. I want to play 2. I might sideboard a second one, but Gokule can find it from the deck when you need it. So 1 copy does feel pretty okay for now. So for fusion material, we're playing 4 copy of the Goten Trunks. This card is really strong, and I think that's obvious, but like, yeah, it counts as both names for fusion, but what's also important is that it can be a 1 energy 15k attacker, which again, like, people that play Gotenks, I just don't see them use this effect often enough. Like, a lot of times you see people play Gotenks, and they are trying to go for this Grim Reaper spam, which of course is the #1 thing about this deck, but there's various other effects in this deck that are low-key or like maybe hidden. They're not necessarily hidden, they're on the cards, but like, people just don't use them to the best of their abilities enough, and this can really help you close out games. That 1 extra attack can be relevant. I want to see more people doing that kind of thing, and that's what I'm trying to do with this deck, is kind of just get every last piece of mileage out of it. But anyways, we're playing 3 copies of the Trunks fusion material. This card's great because when you fuse with it, you can look at top 7 and add a Unison, so it helps with consistency. And also it has a pay 1 effect, which can bring this Goten Trunks out from the deck, which can then bounce itself back to your hand to look at top 5, and I believe it adds a Unison or a Gotenks card, I believe. But yeah, basically you can do that effect, and then you know, set up a different turn 1 play if you don't have Gokul. And then we are playing 1 copy of Goten Brimming with Talent, and this is another Goten name, but the main thing about it is you can pick it up from the drop area for 1 energy, which is cool. So there are going to be various times where you're just playing defense and you need to have like Dorm Potential fodder, or you just need a fusion material, pay 1, pick it up, and now you have a Goten, maybe you have a Trunks, and that sets you up pretty nicely. So I may go up to 4 on this. Right now I'm playing 3, and that's kind of the recommendation of my teammate Russell Stelzer. He kind of said just play 3 of it, it's fine. I may go up to 4 of it. I'll tell you guys what the card I might cut to play the 4th when we get there. But of course, we're playing 4 copies of Frieza Charismatic Villain. You just absolutely have to play it when you're playing green. It's just a no-brainer. And we are playing 2 copies of Fusamasu Deity's Wrath. This card is definitely optional. It's still, I don't know, actually got reprinted, I guess, like 3 or 4 times now, so I guess it's not that hard to obtain. But yeah, I would say it's pretty optional. I do like it, and the thing with this deck that I want to do is try to keep the energy cost for threats as low as possible. Like, I don't really want to be paying more than 2 for most things in this deck. Like you're paying for Grim Reaper, right? I want to be paying, you know, 1, 0, or maximum 2 for threats in this deck, and Zamasu is a really good threat to pay 1 for. I do like it, but again, pretty optional, not super necessary. Oh, and I guess while we're talking about energy, I do think that green blue is pretty decent for Gotenks. I just didn't want to go that route because I feel like it can be clunky at times, and if you miss that turn 1 blue charge, it might feel pretty bad. But I do think it's a pretty decent build. I have a build on the channel here actually from someone who topped an event a while ago, so you can definitely check that out. Anyways, I'm playing 2 copies of Zarbon Cosmic Elite. I don't see all lists playing this, which again is fine, but I like it because that you have discard effects that you want to do, like this, the leader effect, or Dorm Potential, for example. And this is a card that can benefit you out of the drop area. Now, I'm not playing Rebrand in this list because I think it does cost a bit too much energy for what Gotenks wants to do, but I may consider sideboarding it. I'll talk about that later. I think just for the 1 energy play, though, this guy is really high value. Block and attack, make them pitch a card, and this also pairs very well with Dormant because it can block one of their 2 attacks for the turn while you use Dormant. So I think that's really good synergy there. And we're playing 3 copies of Rosie. So I just got done talking about how I only want to pay 1 or 2 for threats in this deck. I don't want to really be paying 3 or more for things. Now, my teammates, again, Russell and a couple other guys, recommended I try this card out, and it's got some merit, and that's because, like, you know, blue is expected to be really good again, and I do think control decks are going to be solid in set 16, so this is kind of just like a main deck tech for that meta expectation, so that's why we're playing 3 copies of it. I may end up going down to 2 of it to fit in that 4th Trunks we were talking about earlier, that 4th fusion material. I think this could be where it gets cut, but I am trying it out at 3, just so that in test games I can draw it and really see the effectiveness of it or not. If I end up never casting it, or if I end up you know, just charging it most of the time, I'll probably cut 1 of it, if not all of it, to fit in that extra Trunks, and then maybe I'll play Rebrand. But I would rather pay 1 extra for Rosie than Rebrand in a lot of cases because that triple attack can be really relevant. But yeah, I do think it's a little bit expensive, but my teammates recommended it, so I want to try it out for now, see how good or bad it is. And then for super combos, last battle cards of green, I guess, we're playing 4 Paragus, of course. Pretty much the best super combo you could play. I think Android 18 super combo is also decent as well, but I guess I would say this build's not fully invested in like crazy hand control, but there are hand control elements of the deck for sure. Playing 4 Dorm Potentials, these beautiful winter stamp versions of the card. I was thinking about playing 3 because we're not really in a super aggressive meta, but if you're playing sideboard best of 1, it's totally fine to main 4 of this just so your deck is, you know, consistent, and then you can take copies out if you're playing against a control deck or whatever. So that's definitely a way you can kind of abuse sideboard at best of 1 in terms of deck construction. But of course, Dormant's just Dormant, it's really good. Playing 2 copies of Homicidal Clones, just one of the best cards in green right now. It's just a super solid negate. Lets you take a life if you need to get down to 4, which will help you get your super combos online, because sometimes you do get stuck at 6, again, especially against those slower decks that maybe want to attack your Unison and whatnot. I'm playing 3 copies of Cell's Earthshrine Kamehameha. I do actually really like this card in this deck. Again, it pairs very nicely with Dormant because it can essentially combo out out of most attacks that they'll be attacking with through Dormant. So that's really good there. And it does, you know, whittle some resources away from them. So has a lot of added value there. And then for the final 3 cards of the deck, we're playing 1 copy of Fighting Against Fates. The reason I'm playing 1 is because we do want to make sure our drop is, I guess, sufficient with fusion materials so that when our Grim Reapers die, we can add them back. But of course, you do want the 1 Overwhelm to help with game-ending power. Playing 1 copy of East Supreme Kai just for, you know, that added double strike. We don't actually have too much inherent double strike in the deck. We have a big dual attacker that we're going to want to give double strike to, so the 1 Champa is definitely really good. But for our main win condition, we are playing Cell's, you know, Unspeakable Abomination. It's always been a staple of green Gotenks, and of course you can play lots of other SCRs. You can play Ape, you could play Kai, you can play Pan, you can play whatever you want. But I mean, 2 Grim Reapers just perfectly adds up to Cell's. You know, you can make it lots of other ways too. You could have a Grim Reaper, you could have a Frieza Charismatic Villain and like a Gokul. That also works. Or you could have a Grim Reaper and like 2-3 drops on the board. There's a lot of ways to get Cell's online. And I do like the fact that this has been a reprinted SCR. So for you guys that are on more of a budget, definitely should be a relatively obtainable card if you want to make that investment. So that's the main deck. Again, 50 cards. I currently like where it's at. Again, I'm going to be messing around with the Rosies, seeing if they're really worth it. 1 card I was considering was actually the 1-drop Kakunsa from Evolution Booster. I thought that card was pretty cool, but my teammates said no, play Rosie. So I'm going to try it out, and if I don't like it, I might end up going back to playing that Kakunsa. But anyways, I don't want to give you guys just a flat-out 15-card side deck because it really depends what your locals are doing and what is played at your locals or, you know, whatever event you're planning on going to. So I'm just going to give you guys ideas for sideboard cards that I think are pretty good. So the first one, Focus Breakthrough. This helps stop cards like Robotic Riposte, like Topo, stuff like that. There's also a 1-drop Dodoria that does the same thing. It stops the play of a 2 or less. I guess Focus Breakthrough is a little bit better because it stops with 3 or less. But the thing is, this one requires you to have 4 or less life to activate, and the Dodoria requires you to have a Unison in play to activate. So they both kind of have like a restriction. So in that case, I guess you got to like just pick your poison. Dodoria's got the benefit of being a battle card, so you can combo with it. Focus Breakthrough, obviously you can't. So again, you kind of have to pick your poison. 1 copy of Shocking Death Ball. This can be great against decks like Gogeta Xeno or anything that's like low to the ground, like maybe a red Bardock's crew deck. Just really good to have in the sideboard against aggressive strategies. That's definitely solid. Likewise, we have the Majin Buu Unadulterated Malice. So people call it Bupo. It's basically Green's version of Topo, and again, same thing. It can be very, very good against you know, low to the ground aggro decks, or even like go tall aggro decks. If they don't have an answer to this card, they're probably not going to attack through it. They're not going to want to pitch the 2 cards. We do have Big and More. Just as a suggestion, now Gogeta Xeno is obviously getting nerfed, and this is the main card you'd want to bring this in against, but there may be a handful of other matchups where it could be good, probably more rogue types of decks, but this can be good against Gogeta Xeno. How popular is Gogeta Xeno going to be after the nerfs? I'm not sure. I still think it's quite strong, but I guess we're going to have to kind of see how the meta goes in terms of whether or not people play Gogeta Xeno and if you need to be siding this card or not. Rebrian, yeah, I can definitely see a world where I'm siding this card, especially if control decks and blue decks are very, very popular, because you just want to be taking resources away from them as much as physically possible. And with Cell Surge getting banned going in set 16, it seems like a lot less people will be siding Deborah, or at least, you know, as much hand control hate as they were playing. So actually fitting more hand control elements in your deck seems like a good play, at least by that logic. And then we have Chilled, the Assailant. So this is just more barrier removal. That's the main thing here. His token spamming ability is actually pretty cool as well. But yeah, the barrier removal is a nice added benefit there. And of course, you could just play or sideboard another copy of the All-Out Assault Gotenks. I may very well do that. Again, especially because Slug should be relatively popular in the meta. But just another piece of barrier removal you can consider. There's also the, I think it's called the Hidden Might or Hidden Power Gohan, the draft box card. It's also another option you have there. And then for some just splashable black cards, we have the Time Disruptor Kai. This is also decent against Gogeta Xeno, or maybe, you know, any other low to the ground 1-2 drop spam type of deck, maybe even like a random AOD, or again like a Bardock's crew. But yeah, so this was clarified that this does stop cards with deflect because it affects the player, not the actual cards themselves. So this card actually does pick up a lot of playability with that. Then we have Makikabora, the Broken Seal. So this could be a really, really good sideboard tech going into the next meta if control decks do end up being really popular, because if they rely on a central boss monster, Makikabora can just stop it outright for an entire turn, and that allows you to, you know, possibly set up a kill turn. So that can be really solid there. We have Jiren Survival of the Fittest, because if blue is going to be popular, we may want to be prepared for Android 17 turning the tide. I would say Gotenks can put a lot of pressure on with Grim Reapers early, but again, like with Telzino being our boss monster, we want to expect to go to turn 5 a fair amount of games. Maybe we can win games earlier if our opponents are self-awakening or we're really getting lucky and just playing a bunch of Grim Reapers that our opponent can't answer. But if that's not the case, we do want to play a longer game, and we might be, we just wanted to be prepared for turning the tide. And then we are playing 1 copy of Food the Dark Banisher. This is just the new guy now that Food Shrouded is banned. It's obviously not as broken as Food Shrouded, but it is a very comparable card. It taxes your opponent once it hits the board. It's got triple attack itself. 25k, pretty big guy. I think this is going to be pretty cool to start experimenting with now that Food Shrouded is gone. But anyways, guys, that's the build there. Kind of went through the turns with you guys. Turn 1, Gokul. Turn 2, Unison into Gokul's second effect. And then turn 3, you'll probably start spamming the Grim Reapers and making other defensive plays, according to what you need. But hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.